Hi there, if you're listening in, just let me know in the chat once you can see and hear me, and I'll definitely get started. Fantastic. Look, let me just introduce myself while others are joining us today. My name is Alex Asher. I am the CEO of LearnCube, and what we do is we help language companies and tutors like yourselves here. And so I'm bringing that experience to this conversation. So I'm going to start in just another 10 seconds just to let everyone in, but lovely to have everybody here. And thanks so much for putting those comments into the chat. I do have you here and I can see you, and we're going to have a great session together. Fantastic. People from everywhere here. Fantastic. Well, let's get started because you are here to watch the one and only language show. And look, my name is Alexander Asher. I'm the CEO of LearnCube. And the reason I'm here to talk to you is I'm hoping that I can share my experience with you and bring that to the fore and ideally give you some great ideas that you can work practically towards either a launch of your own business, or if you're running your own language school, really some ideas on how to make this work for you. And maybe you might even be working for a language school. And again, you can take these with you. So again, thank you for joining. What I can tell you, I guess, from my experience is because I run LearnCube, we really do have experience with Babel, ABA English. We're partnering with Oxford University Press. We have a really wide range of experience. And again, that's what I want to sort of synthesize into something for you today. The thing that we specialize in is our virtual classroom. So the thing I understand the most is that live education piece online with a teacher. So I'm going to be bringing some of those ideas, but particularly I'm going to be focusing on that business element, that marketing element, because again, I want to share what's worked for our most successful customers. And I guess one of the reasons that I'm talking to you today as well is I'm co-writer of a book that will be coming out shortly called Langtech. And I've really looked at the future of online language education as a really big focus. So I've spoken with people from Duolingo, from EF, from some of the biggest names in languages, and also from lots of other really innovative, exciting companies as well. So all of these things I hope to wrap into a session that I think is really great for you. Now we're getting lots of really interesting information from the chat. What I'd love is if you can tell me, just maybe write in the chat if you're a tutor, a teacher, a language school, and it gives me a much better understanding of who I'm talking to and how I can make this the most relevant and practical session for you. So just pop that in the chat if you have it. Perfect. Excellent. So we're already seeing lots of teachers here today. Lots of self-employed tutors, or even people that might be thinking about it. We are actually here, coming in November. January is probably around the corner. People are really thinking, hey, what am I going to do for my January? Like, what's my next year looking like? And so what I can tell you out of this session is we're going to focus probably the first 25 to 30 minutes on what I have prepared for you. But I really want to be able to go back and answer your questions. You're going to have a bunch. So I really want you to think about what some questions are as we go through this and get those ready. And we'll probably spend a good 15 minutes on Q&A at the end of this. So jumping into this, I think one thing that a lot of people, a lot of language teachers feel that this is a new thing, but really online language teaching is not a new thing at all. Skype really was kind of, I guess, the first real kind of glimpse of live online education. That's the thing, by the way, I'm going to be talking about. You're human teachers, which means you're looking to how can you deliver your skill and your passion online potentially. So with this, I guess I wanted to give you a bit of an idea of what was already there when you arrived at this, possibly after COVID. You're kind of looking online, or maybe you're already online teaching, which is great. And you can maybe ask me some more advanced questions. Now, remember, if you struggle to answer your questions today, you can contact us on our email. I'm going to be looking through all of that over this weekend, so feel free to send me any questions or thoughts about that, and I'll do my best to answer you as well. Now, what I'm quoting here is actually the general, like, what people are prepared to pay for these. And I thought this was relevant because a lot of language tutors don't really know what to price at, and also a lot of language schools don't really know what to price at, because there's, again, language teaching online is not a new thing. And I think it's awesome, at least a really helpful thing to know what's there so you can kind of compare. And likewise, you can position. That's something I'm going to be talking a lot about. Now, you're familiar with this, and I don't need to go into the fact that, you know, COVID-19 has disrupted things, and it's accelerated trends that were already happening. Previous to COVID-19, we were already seeing declining enrollment periods on a lot of in a lot of countries around the world. We were already seeing the rise of online learning and online teaching, and it's just really accelerated those and brought those to the fore. And likewise, we've seen some really big improvements in tools and education. So those things, I think, can give us, you know, some confidence about where we're actually heading. And look, these might be issues that you're facing too, and you can maybe even in the chat tell us what your problems are. What are the problems that you're facing? The one that I mean, we've already noticed is this drop in enrollments. People are concerned. We're seeing cancellations, at least in schools. We're seeing anxious students. A lot of that anxiety, fortunately, is starting to come down, but we're starting to see fatigue arise in its place. So I think there's some opportunities here. And the one that I'm going to focus on is this one about how do we attract students as well. I think that's probably the biggest difficulty for lots of tutors. And if you agree, please put that in the chat, because this is what I've noticed, is that that's one of the fundamental problems for tutors that are either self-employed and even schools, right? They're struggling to find new students. And how do we do this? So that's what I hope to do, is to provide you some practical tips and ideas. So it's all very well talking about marketing. How do I find students immediately? But remember, this all has to fit together. It's like a stack of cards. If you don't have the right combination, you're not going to win your hand. And I think of these sort of 4 different kind of areas and sectors. I'm going to glance through the first 3, and I'm going to spend a bit more time on the 4th, if you agree. And again, pop into the chat if you want us to spend more time on some of these. But marketing is one of the ones I want to focus on. But if you don't have the fundamentals, then it's going to be really hard for you to make that marketing work for you. And in the end, that's what we're really looking for. So market, business, product, and marketing. And if you get all of that right, then you're going to be successful. So I'm going to start with the market, because if you get this right, then the rest actually can follow as well. So with your marketing strategy and your market, you're going to have to figure out, who are you going to serve? What is your market? Now, language education is a giant market, but in that is a whole bunch of little small sub-markets. And I want you to be thinking about, which of those small sub-markets are you going to focus on? Because you can't do all of it. And even if you tried, you're going to dilute yourself so much, you'll never be able to compete with the big established players already there. So I want you to think of these 3 things. You're going to be picking your niche, finding your audience, and adding value to that. So with picking a niche, why that's so important, and why I call it the market, right, is because you have to focus on one part of that market. There's a lot of attention on language learning at the moment. So it's everyone's sort of going after the biggest part of that, which is the broadest part of that, right, which is general language education. But there's so many other parts, so many rich parts. And why don't you in the chat tell us about some of the things you're thinking of? What are subsections? What are the niches that you're working on? IELTS exam prep. It could be language education for Spanish students that are in the UK. Like, it can be super niche, or it can be much, much bigger. Great. English for tourism, English for accounting. These are all small little areas that, you know, little kingdoms, if you will, that you could potentially really dominate. And I really think that's one of the things to remind yourselves, is you can't do everything. So what's the one that you feel that you could have the best chance at winning on? And where I kind of, again, thinking this is about the market, right? What market are you going to focus on? What advantages do you naturally have? What advantages do you have about your skill set and your expertise But let's start with the geographic competitiveness. Like, people like their own tribe, right? So by the way, guess where I'm from. I'll leave that to you in the chat. You can, so guess where I'm from. But the thing is, we're all very oh, very good. All right, there we are. That's what I was expecting. I'm actually from New Zealand. I'm a Kiwi living in London. That's where LearnCube's based as well, but we're a remote team. But what I would say is this. People are tribal, right? So if I'm a New Zealander in London, then there's a good chance I'm probably going to have the biggest impact with other New Zealanders compared to, say, maybe Americans or Russians, where I don't really understand that kind of culture, or I don't even have that geographic advantage. So think about geographic advantage, but then also kind of layer that on, like, what other advantages do you have? Demographic advantages, like maybe you're really young, in which case you might be able to, you're a young teacher, which you can use that to your advantage. Like, how can you be kind of cool and interesting and really up with the times for a much younger audience? Or maybe you're much older, brilliant. You know, maybe older clientele are going to be really comfortable with you because you've got a natural affinity and natural empathy and natural advantage. So when you're picking that niche, have a think about what are those advantages. And again, put them in the chat. What are your advantages? And what's unique to you? Because what I want at the end of this is that you come away with really a roadmap of what you need to focus on. So on top of that, I already saw that previously in the chat, which is you might have an expertise advantage. You know, maybe you're an accountant that's moved into language teaching, so you understand all of the lingo that goes with accounting, but then you can apply your language teaching experience on top. There might be other things like IELTS. Maybe you've spent years on IELTS. Maybe you've got this great, rich experience with IELTS. Maybe you've even authored a book. You know, there's a whole bunch of things that might give you a real skills advantage. So think about what those natural advantages are. And I want you to come together with the smallest niche you can, because that'll be your kernel. That'll be the core of all of your marketing. And again, we're just on that first pedal, the market. But that's why your marketing will come from this. Some really great ideas coming from the chat here, by the way. Thanks for that. Now, I'm going to glance over this one because you have to have your business operations right. This we could spend a lot of time, and again, LearnCube does a lot in this area with online school and our kind of total solution there. But regardless, the things that you need to solve is people need to be able to pay, or at least you need to be able to control how much time they spend with you. They need to be able to schedule classes. You need to deliver a fantastic online teaching, online instruction, online learning experience, and you need to be able to repeat that. And the better you can make that, the more seamless you can make that, the less friction you can make that, the more successful you'll be. I mean, just think about how you shop. Like, do you like dealing with somebody that's like, oh, you can absolutely pay, everything is perfect, you can schedule on my calendar, we're going to have a great experience in a really professional virtual learning environment, you're going to have a great time. Oh, but you have to fax me your bank account details, and then you can pay by transfer, and and it takes them about 10 minutes. Like, people don't want that extra friction. So how can you pay easily? How can you schedule easily? And how can you deliver a phenomenal experience? So as I say, I glanced over that one because I feel like, again, that's more of an operational side of things, and you can kind of focus on that in your own time. Now, product is an area that I do want us to spend a little bit more time on, because product means your service. If you're delivering education, your product is the way that you deliver that experience, that knowledge. But it's not just knowledge, right? You're not delivering your knowledge. You're selling the student education. You're selling the student's academic outcomes. You're selling results. You're selling confidence, particularly with online teaching. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, people are most interested in speaking and learning to improve their speaking with you when they're on these online classes, right? Why? Because speaking is what, like, you have to do it in interviews. It's the one thing you can't fake. Like, we're getting these amazing software solutions, even translation systems that are making written English, for example, much easier than ever to get right. But if you get in an interview and you can't speak fluently and confidently, it really shows. And that's when people really start hurting, and also where people see the value, because they're like, hey, before I couldn't speak confidently. I didn't have that job, or I had that sort of strained relationship with my foreign girlfriend, or I had, there'll be or I wasn't able to successfully travel and feel confident. And then I had this experience with this teacher, and the product, the outcome, the thing that I bought was the results. I had this really great experience. And I want to spend a little bit of time on that. Like, how do you develop a fantastic experience? So not only, and I think when you think about that, I would jump onto that business thing. How do you make it a great experience, not just in the classroom, but also out of the classroom? How do when they introduce themselves to you, how do they feel like welcomed? How do they feel like this is a seamless, great experience? So have a think about all of those parts of the experience, because what you're actually looking for is to create a positioning in the market, which again will come, that's part of the product. Like, what you're selling is the sense of status that people get with taking on your teaching. Like, are they getting a premium experience, or are they getting just an affordable experience, which is just as useful? But equally, like, are they getting a very specialist experience, which again feels more boutique and high quality? Or are people getting, a very standardized but kind of very affordable experience? So have a think about that, because that impacts, how many students you have in the class, what sort of materials you might have, how customized you make that experience. So there's a whole bunch of things there that really come to the fore when you've made that decision on your position in the market. And pricing will come, right? Like, so pricing will come. If you deliver the value, people will pay for that. So even when I had that first slide on, like, hey, why is there this big range? Because people are playing in this matrix. People are playing with, well, I'm higher end, or I'm more quality, or I'm higher qualified, or I've got this special advantage. So have a little think about where you sit, and then what makes you unique as well, because that's going to come into the marketing piece here. What are the aspects of your product, your service, the thing that you deliver, your outcome? What about that is unique and interesting? Because that's going to come into the marketing piece, which I want to spend a bit more time on. So I've got this as a good way of just helping you again with some really, like, practical tips, either during this or maybe after. Spend some time, like, what do you do to make the experience before the class exceptional? And that might be before the first class, or even just before any class. Like, what is it about that experience that really delights the student? And to be fair, they're also your customer, right? Now, if you're dealing with parents, remember that there's different stakeholders. You need to make the parent feel great and the student feel great. There's two people you need to really help with that equation. If you're working with a business person, they're the customer and also the student, right? So have a little think about how you improve that pre-class experience. The during course and during class experiences, there's a whole range of things. You might introduce some technology, you might introduce the content, you might have a specific way that you deliver it. Maybe it's about the energy you bring to that class that's unique and interesting for you. But there's a bunch of things you can do. Write those down, because you're going to need to use those for your marketing piece as well. And then also after the class, what do you do? Do you send homework? Do you have a way of making that student really feel that they have learned? Do you send a little summary? Like, all of these things, by the way, there's a technical kind of solution for. If you're kind of worried about that, you can add that later. But there's a lot that you can be doing. So maybe even in the chat here, what are some of the ways that you create an amazing experience for your students? Just in the same way that you want a phenomenal experience when you go to a restaurant, when you go to the cinemas, when you buy anything online, you want a great experience. Think about the things that you've learned from shopping yourself. What did they do that made you feel important? What did they do to make you feel that it was really of high value? Because those are going to be important if you want to charge a premium, which means you'll be more profitable, and likewise get more customers. So the last piece I'm going to spend a bit more time on is this marketing component, right? And so marketing has come from knowing your market, knowing your niche, having your business processes in place, because if you don't make those super seamless, you're going to be losing people. You spend lots of money on marketing, or you spend lots of time, or you spend lots of effort on marketing, and you lose it. So think about, we've talked product, we've talked about business, we've talked about the product, because again, that product is something you're going to need to explain and I really want you to think on that piece. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about, first of all, again, going back to the first question, who is your niche and where are they? Where are they hanging out? They're all different, they're all different, and therefore they need different strategies. Now, this is where some really practical tips are. In the chat as well, let me know, are you focused more on like students, so consumers, let's call them? I hate the word consumers, but at least it makes it easier to understand, are you selling to businesses or are you selling to individuals, to students, which could be students and parents, but it's, again, I kind of use that consumer as a not perfect comment, but this is part of your business. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to help you with is just with some ideas. Where can you go to find these customers? Now, I'm getting some information that, hey, we're looking at individuals, we're looking at customers here. Brilliant. Now, again, go back to your market, that niche. Where do they hang out? Because the closer you get to knowing where they are, you can just send just the right message to those customers. Whereas if you've got a very broad segment, you don't really know who it is, you get really lost. You really lose your focus and you're going to waste a lot of money. And when you're an independent tutor, you can't afford to lose money. You can't afford to waste energy. Instead, the great thing about sometimes if you're an independent tutor, but even if you're just going after a small segment, you don't need the world. You just need, if you're a student, if you're a self-employed tutor, you might only need 20 customers. You can get 20 customers. And that means you can be super niche and look after the people you love looking after. Look after the people that you've got a natural affinity with, you've got a natural advantage with. So have a think about those ideas when you kind of think about, hey, where do these customers, these students live? Are they going to be on the web looking for certain things? Blog content would be really important, which you can then put into Facebook. Are they hanging out on Facebook? Maybe they're on Instagram, maybe they're on TikTok, maybe they're on LinkedIn. Have a little think about where are those customers, because you're going to need to really target all of your efforts on probably just one to begin with. Now, one of the things I didn't make a huge deal of, and I'm going to make a big deal of it because it implies also for your marketing, but is having one niche at a time. This is one of the biggest failings I see over and over and over again with schools. I notice it a lot. I notice a lot with tutors, and it makes no sense to me when it comes to tutors, because tutors, you're a single individual. You've got the entire world that you can serve. Why wouldn't you be super niche? Because you only need that 20 to 100 students, right? If you're bigger, fine, but you still need that. What's the smallest thing that you can start with? Because just like a snowball, you need a really good core if you're wanting that snowball to build, right? Whereas if you've got like tiny little pebbles everywhere, like how are you going to build something great? How are you going to build something that has its own momentum and kind of builds on itself, right? So that's why I want you to be very, very focused on one niche at a time. And that means probably you're going to start with one of these kind of marketing channels to begin with, and then you're going to build on that. So you might start with Facebook, and that's going to be where you have your like content, or you're going to start with Instagram, and that's where you're going to have your content, and then you're going to build out, and then you're going to build out, and then you're going to build out, but only once that's working, right? Unless that's rolling, why would you add more snow? Why would you add more kind of clutter, noise, effort, time, money to it? You need to have that ball rolling. So next, if you are in B2B, and there are a couple of you that are looking at LinkedIn, so let me tell you about LinkedIn in particular. LinkedIn is phenomenal, but again, it's its own strategy. By the way, you can also target business people on Facebook, on Instagram, so that they're not exclusive. So don't feel like you only have to go to LinkedIn. But if you are using LinkedIn, here are some really clever ways to make sure that you stand out. First of all, think of your LinkedIn profile as your website as well, right? So don't put boring stuff like people aren't interested in your own chronology. Use it as a marketing tool, right? And when I say marketing tool, marketing is not a nasty word. All you're doing is putting your best foot forward. You're saying, hey, if you're an accountant, I'm your teacher. If you're an accountant based in London, from Brazil, I'm your teacher. How can you be more and more niche, particularly if you're independent? You might want a slightly bigger niche if you're a school, but only pick one at a time. Again, schools, this is the biggest failing because a lot of physical schools have gone online. They used to have a really diverse range, or at least in the physical setting, they were looking after businesses, for teens, for customers, for business, everything. And you just can't do that when you're starting online. You need to still pick one of those, whatever the strongest one is, focus on that one, get that rolling. And then just like you did with the physical school, then you add that extra component. Then you go from IELTS to offering general, or IELTS to offering one other segment. So think about it in those terms, I'd say. Now with this LinkedIn, make sure you create a really nice image. Make sure you're using high quality imagery of your face, you're smiling, people really see you. And this is the biggest thing, you're selling you. Even when you're a school, there's something about people want faces. They don't want to see generic brands. There are enough of those, and you can't really compete on a brand. Instead, you're your best brand. Your face, your approach, your energy, your specialization. Those are all the things that are really important for you to convey. And this is where you do it, in your LinkedIn profile. And actually, I would do this regardless, even if you're a consumer. Get your LinkedIn profile right. Make sure that you've got a really nice banner that really articulates, hey, this is me. And probably in the larger banner, this is the imagery that gives you the confidence that I'm actually looking after you. So if you're looking after accountants, maybe you shouldn't have like a picture of flowers in that profile. You probably want to have, accountants and then yourself, right? Then you're kind of putting the two and two together. And so when somebody, let's say that you were successful in connecting with a business person that was just right for you, what they're going to do is check out your profile, and they're going to be like, this language teacher is looking perfectly at accountants. I'm an accountant. This sounds perfectly for me. Whereas the opposite would happen, is if you're like, everything is to do with, I don't know, retail, and then you're sending it out to an accountant. Like, why are you contacting me? People should be like, I know why this person's contacting me. I know they're not, and when you connect with people, don't sell them hard. They don't want to be sold to. What you're trying to do is say, hey, look, I can add value to, add value to it just by being a connection. I'm going to be posting some great stuff on LinkedIn that's really, really relevant just for you. You're going to get value regardless, right? That's the free bit. That's the testing, trying bit. And then on top of that, you might want to join my course, which you're going to get X, Y, and Z. And that's why I'll be your customer, adding value, as you say. So compelling about section, make that really interesting and vibrant, not a chronology. People are not interested in knowing your work experience. What they're interested in is why you're right for them. Next, if you're now looking at ads, I wouldn't even look at ads until you're using these free services and these either social media, your blog, website, whatever it is that you're using to create content. Until you've got that foundation, until you've got that right, there's no point in looking at ads. But this is for the people that are ready. They've got all those foundations ready, right? They've been posting great content for either the consumers or for the businesses, but now they're ready to advertise. So if you're advertising, create a hook, right? People are looking through, just think about what you're doing when you're looking through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm not looking to buy something necessarily. I'm just looking to engage. I'm looking for something to perk my interest. So that hook, what's that curiosity? And the good thing is you'll know that if you know your niche. You can't create a good hook if you're talking to everybody. You can only create a good hook, something that will really stand out if you're talking to that person. If that's an accountant, like what is it that that accountant would be really interested in? It's probably going to be like, hey, this ad is like for accountants just like me trying to learn X. And again, there's some wonderful sub niches here for tutors to explore. What about, for example, we had one person that was looking for Brazilians living in Italy. It's a very specific niche, but you can focus on those now. When you're creating these ads, make it all about them. So you're not talking about yourself. This is, again, one of the major failings for a lot of advertising, is it's all about, hey, look at me. I'm this amazing teacher. Look at me. Look at my school. This is like phenomenal. Look at what I do. People aren't interested in you. They're interested in them. Now, if you change that around, you say, hey, I understand your problems. I understand your desires. I understand what you're looking for. This is all about you. And actually, the way I'm going to do that is maybe by a testimonial is actually a great example, right? Get your students, your best, if your best fans, how can you get them to, and it's not hard, give them a free session. They probably love you anyway. And that's the whole point, is you should be pushing your own experience, right? But with those testimonials, you should be saying, they only need a phone. Please don't do anything super fancy. They need a phone and they just need to say, hey, look, I was working with Julia. I'm an accountant. I've been struggling with my English for the last 20 years. I've never really made any headway. I'm still at like a B1, but actually I work with Julia and now I'm finally at an A1 and I just got a new job. Like that's the stuff that's going to hook me if I'm on Facebook, because now I'm hearing a story and that's much more interesting than whatever it is that makes you apparently great, right? So while you need to know what's great about you, you actually need to know why you're, who you're helping, and create that emotion. Now, one of the big tips again, now I have put Herbert Gertz's name there. I do a lot of webinars with Herbert. We actually do a free one every Thursday on marketing for language schools. So a lot of this is his materials, particularly on the advertising. He's really good at it. One of the things he knows, because he spends a lot of money on Facebook and he spends a lot of money getting results for people, is that you have to use authentic photos. Don't go to stock. Ask your students to take a picture, or can you take a picture of them doing a class? Make them smiley, make it engaging. That's as a basic. But also what we've noticed is can you get some, as I say, these have got to be authentic images. So not from stock photos, not from Google. These are your photos. You own them. They're of real students that really look like the students you're trying to capture. Those are the important ones. So if you're using videos, whatever, it's got to be yours. And it's not hard. This is the thing that a lot of people kind of go, oh, I don't know about this. I don't think I could ask. Ask. You have to ask your students. And if you're doing a great job, they're only going to be too willing to help you. You'll only be nervous if you don't think you're doing a good job. If you're not doing a good job, then there are bigger problems, right? You're going to really struggle to get that cycle working. So if you're making your students love you, then they're going to be happy to give you some of these assets, and they are really assets. So think about those. Now, I'm going to stop there for a moment because I really wanted to pass this over to you and ask for your ideas. What do you want to know over the next, we've got about 13, 15 minutes. I've really enjoyed this so far, but look, this is just talking, right? I want to know your questions. I want to know what you're really working on. So please pop in your questions here in the chat. I'm going to do my best to answer them. Great. By the way, I have put a little link on this page. This is to our Thursdays. We do, as I say, these sort of free webinars on Thursdays. It's 4 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. CT. The reason I put that there is because you might want to learn more, in which case this is a good completely free way of you being able to do this. I've also left my email there, info@LearnCube, so that again, if you've got some specific questions, particularly if you're an online language school, then you might be very interested in what we do. So let's talk on your questions. Q&A. I'm going to go to Q&A first. Now, all of these questions about payments and those things, I don't want to spend time on the business just yet because this is going to be focused on marketing. But look at LearnCube. We have a lot of resources there as well. But equally, PayPal is a super simple way. Now, let's go to Q&A. I'm just going to try and bring it up. Now, what I'll do is just, here we go. I've got Q&A. Right. Okay. Privacy issues with students. Look, we've had this question before. What I would say is just ask. If you ask your student, then there's no problem with privacy. Don't be afraid to ask. In terms of taking payments, I sort of mentioned that PayPal's a super easy way, but it's your first stop. And then there are either shopping carts, or you can even, if you're a language school, then you can look at services like ours. What if you have multiple expertise? Perfect. Everyone has actually multiple expertise, which is fine. You might want to test those, right? Test them and then see where's your biggest subset. Now, if you can't tell the difference between those subsets, then just choose one, right? If you've got half here and half there, you may as well just pick one and double down on that, because there's, if there's no benefit or negative of you choosing one, may as well choose one. So that's what I'd say around sort of choosing multiple expertise. Recommending teaching platform. Naturally, we've got a fantastic virtual classroom. You've got a free trial with LearnCube, but equally, look, I mean, we're also, evaluating whether we can kind of integrate with Zoom with our whiteboard. So I think, a lot of people using Zoom right now, but again, I think these are kind of technicalities. You can kind of find all of these by looking online. Yes, I would definitely focus on one type of students at a time, right? Now, if I go to a web page and I'm a business person and I see a whole bunch of kids, like, it's clearly not for me. I'm going to move. I'm out of there. I'm going to find one that's made for me. So yes, it's very important that your imagery matches your one niche that you go for. How often do you Facebook post? I mean, as regularly as you like. You're not going to annoy people, to be fair, as long as it's super quality content. Focus just as much time on how you distribute that message rather than just create it. Now, I'm bad at this as well. I like the idea of creating great content, but actually you need to spend just as much time, if not more time, getting your message out to people. Can you show the papers per hour? Yes, I can, but I think there's going to be a way you can access recordings here. So a lot of this stuff you can come through. Okay, I've actually got a couple of questions on the pricing, so I will just pop that on. These are not set in stone. They're only just to indicate one particular concept here, which is, unfortunately or fortunately, the more people you have in a class, the lower value people perceive that experience. And also, the bigger your class, and this is one thing I definitely saw as a major problem with a lot of language schools going online. They started dumping people into these massive classes. It's hard to deliver a great large group classroom experience, right? If you've got more than 8 students, how are you going to manage more than 8 students all engaging with you at one time? Now, again, LearnCube, we've got some strategies on how you can do that, breakout rooms and a bunch of other features, but it's hard. I would not start there. Start with one-to-one. It's the easiest way to start. And then if you feel that you can fill the classes and those classes are exceptional experiences for those students, then go into small group. And then if you're really, you're a big school, you can get the scale and you can get all the right people into the same class that are going to gel. So they're the right level, they're looking at the right thing. Then maybe you look at larger group class. But I think it's a real independent, it's a difficult one. Now, I'm just trying to find some more. I'm just in the Q&A, by the way. So I apologize if I'm not looking at chat too, but I'm trying to do my best to focus on some of these. And again, I might even try and look through all of these after this and see if I can do a big kind of FAQ piece after this. So let me just have a look at this. If you don't want your messaging to get lost, then do a really specific post, a really specific message, a really specific piece of content just for your perfect niche. And again, be the best at your niche first before you look at anything else. There's plenty of space in the market for you to grow your business. Where there's not space is in the generic. That's already taken care of. Language teaching online is not a new thing. There are already established players. So forget being generic and focus on where you're going to get that natural advantage. We talked about those again. We talked about geographic. We talked about demographic and cultural, and we also talked about expertise. Now, apologies if I can't. I know that you might be raising your hand. I'm just sort of bashing through these and doing my best to answer as fast as I can. What else would I say to where can I add value here? Alternatives to LinkedIn. I'm sorry, I'm not too familiar with alternatives to LinkedIn, but it is a really phenomenal tool, LinkedIn. I know that Germany, for example, has their own LinkedIn alternative. So, biggest mistakes with delivering group class is they make it boring and generic. One of the things that I am horrified. So again, LearnCube, my vision is how do we improve the quality of language education in the world? And for me, what I see a lot of is regression. I see great teachers that in a physical classroom are dynamic, interesting, engaging, energetic. They break people off. They come up with creativity. They're super prepared. They're confident, exciting in the class. And they go online and they lecture. I mean, how boring would this be if I speak in a monotone and I literally just work my way through the slides one by one? It just does no one any service. So I think that's the thing that I would urge you to try and help me fight against is regressing the quality of language education. Let's make this dynamic. Let's make this interesting. One thing, I'll see if I've got it. Just go back to this slide. There's two other things that I can be of value to you with. One is if you are a language school, I've also put here, and you can just see that URL to my Thrive book. If you're a language school, I think that's a really valuable free resource. It's just a PDF, and it tells you everything you might need to know about how to succeed with, particularly it's about physical schools transitioning online. So I think that's going to be a really valuable experience. And so again, I wanted to add this while I'm answering your questions. But likewise, we have even a free Udemy course now for our customers. Now I'm going to just pass that on. I'll put it into the chat. So this is actually a free Udemy course as well that we've got that actually helps if you're a new teacher and you're trying to understand the tools. This is one that our head of education created, again, free. And I really hope that you get some value. Even if you're not using LearnCube, brilliant, no problem at all. But you're going to get some great ideas on how to succeed and what's sort of available for you. So that's one other, I guess, free resource I can provide. And for me, what I'm quite excited about is now we've got some momentum here with online teaching. We want to give back. We want to kind of really help people like yourselves to really succeed online. Now let's go through some of these. How do you know if your niche is going to be big enough or valid enough? First of all, how big are you? If you're a single teacher, your niche can be super small because you only need, 20 to 100 people in the entire world that are going to come to work with you. Next is, if you're a school and you're kind of wondering how big that niche needs to be, you probably already have data on that, right? Like you've probably been teaching for many, many years. You've probably been teaching an IELTS course or a business English course or a business French course. Like think about, what are some other languages that people might want to be learning? Those are probably great opportunities for people to succeed. Like who at the moment is serving Mongolia? Who's serving them? Who's serving like the lesser known countries where there's these big populations, loads of people that want to learn English, but they're not getting served. And online allows you to break down those barriers. That's one of the things that I really got excited about when we started LearnCube was, and by the way, we're a virtual classroom, but that's why I bring it up, is you don't have to worry about barriers anymore. You guys can nail this. Now, advice about teaching children. I think they're a lot more visual. So I think it's going to be harder just to kind of rely on video. I think with older people, I think you can get away with kind of more just sort of generic video conferencing. But I think with kids, you need to make it a lot more interesting, a bit more engaging. Kids are going to want games. They are going to want to see you. So make sure your video is going to be super important. You have to, and this is one other tip. Please don't tell me you're not using video when you're teaching online. You have to. That's the way that you get your face across. That's the way you get your energy across. That's what people are naturally attracted to. So I think certainly something I would be looking at. I'm just looking. Advice. Yeah, I think this is a good one. Advice on subscription models. You can sell subscriptions. So if like Stripe, for example, takes credit card payments super easy. So that's just a simple credit card system that you can use, and you can do auto billing, right? So you might be selling students like, hey, the way that I help you is by consistency. We all know that it takes consistent effort to be able to learn a language. So instead of being too scared about things, why not say, hey, look, I'll give you X for 10 sessions or X for 20 sessions. It's probably going to take like 30 sessions before private sessions, that is. It's probably going to take a lot more in group before they're actually going to move a level. So again, I would be thinking about those ideas when you're kind of bringing together your business model. And that was one of the other areas. I think we're starting to run out of time. So just in case, I really appreciate your time today. I hope you've enjoyed some of these free resources. I've definitely enjoyed answering your questions, and I'm so excited that there's so many questions, and really like your enthusiasm. I think you're going to have a fantastic new year ahead of you. It's been a crazy disruptive year, but with every crazy year, there's going to be another side of this, which is going to be positive. You're all going to do great. You're going to find financial independence. And if you're a school, you're going to find new success, a new challenge. And I think you're going to nail it. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you for all the questions in the chat. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now, I'll continue until I get cut off, but I imagine I will get cut off at one particular moment, and then I will have to move on. So again, thank you for your time. Now, just while I do this, I'll just see if I can capture a couple of these ideas. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Great. Thank you all. Thank you all. Please pop in any more questions in the Q&A here. I'm just going to try and, how do I do this? I'm going to stop my sharing, and I'm also going to just write this down. Excellent. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you. Nice. What do we got? Best to use Facebook. Yeah, I've got some really great questions here. So again, thank you so much for your time. And sorry, I'm just not looking at you at the moment. I'm just going to try and write some of these notes down so I can create a follow-on resource. Actually, you know what? I'll put it on my blog. So let's just create a new document. I'm going to pop it down actually here. Let me just see what I can do here. So that was, it's just blog.learncube, I believe. Blog.learncube.com. Yeah. So I'm going to do a blog with trying to answer as many of your questions as I can. So let me just put that into the chat. But it will be blog.learncube.com. Sorry, I do find it a little bit confusing with Zoom. How do I answer chat here? View, chat, close chat, open chat. Here we are. Great. So that's where I'm going to try and answer all of your questions. So thank you again for your time. I see 200 people here. I know that there were a lot more of you just before. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. Again, I will try and write a note of all of these great questions and see if I can do a proper Q&A blog of all of them. Let's see if I've got this right. It's very difficult. Here we are. I've got it. Excellent. All right. I think I've got all of your questions, and I'm definitely going to do my best to help you out. In the meantime, until I get kicked out, I may as well just answer questions. Let me just see if there was anything in the chat. Yes, we're seeing people getting some really good testimonials. The playback, I think, is going to be on language, the language show as well. So you'll be able to find that with them. Yes, we do have those free webinars on Thursdays. Yep. So you can join us there. Wonderful. Actually, I don't think too many questions in the chat, but yeah, lots of thanks. And I really appreciate all of your time, folks. Even it's great to see you kind of sharing ideas as well. I think that's important. Yeah, so look, I'm going to take my exit, take my cue. I really appreciate your time, all of you, for joining me today. Had some great questions. Again, the things I'd really love to leave you with is that you need to get your market right. You need to get your business right. You need to get your product right. You need to make that all work in with your marketing. So all the very best.